Today was April 23rd, an exciting day for you. Due to it being your friend's birthday, you already had the perfect gift in mind, so no need to worry about that. All you had to do was head to his house. Later, you arrive at your friend Evan's house. He looks happy to see you there. As he lets you in, with a big grin on his face, you both exchange a friendly handshake as you tell him about your gift. He takes it out of the bag, and noticing the ring, he puts it on, excited. You then instruct him to use it, by holding down on the ring for 5 seconds, while staying calm and focused, to allow you to become whatever you imagine in your mind. After holding down on the ring for 5 seconds, as planned, the ring emitted a purple light, as Evan starts sprouting purple fur over his body, as his ears grow in size, and moves to the top of his head, giving him feline ears. Evan's hands also became a darker shade of purple, and his fingers merged to 3, becoming paws. Meanwhile, his spine would feel a pulling sensation as a long purple cattail grew from behind him. You also noticed his sclera becoming black, and his eyes turning from their usual blue to white. After a moon charm suddenly appeared around his neck, Evan had become Catnap, the quiet and sleepy lavender-scented smiling critter. After this, Evan decided to hold down on the ring, for the second time, so he could experiment with this device various times, as if he was putting on a show for you. After holding down on the ring, Evan was met with an aqua light, and he was able to transform even if he was in a different form. He felt his purple fur start to shed, growing aquamarine scales in place. His ears also started curving and hardening, as they became horns. Evan would also grow a few navy spikes on his head, as his sclera turned back to white, while his eyes became scarlet with black pupils, and his face stretched out into a draconic muzzle. His long purple tail suddenly grew blue tail feathers at the tip, while the rest became the same aquamarine color as his head, and soon, the scales would also replace the purple fur on his body. Meanwhile, his legs would become more slender, as he gained pale blue scales on his underbelly. As for his back, 2 draconic indigo wings would form on his, now her, since Evan became female in the process of this transformation, back. After that, her purple paw pads would vanish, as her fingers would lengthen, and become claw-like at the tip, giving her draconic claws as her arms became longer and more slender. Her legs and feet would go through similar changes, becoming digitigrade in the process, and thus, Evan was now Ember, the dragon princess from My Little Pony. For the next instance where he pressed down on the ring, Evan felt pleased to see a dark grey and white light emit from the ring. You began to watch in excitement, and as Evan reverted back into being male, he was happy to see that, as his horns turned back into cat ears. However, unlike his previous cat ears, these were bigger, and remained on the sides of his head. These ears were also dark grey on the outside, and pink on the inside. Evan would then grow white fur on his face, as his draconic muzzle shrank down into a feline one. Meanwhile, his eyes darkened as they simplified into cartoonish vertical eyes. In addition to this, 3 black whiskers sprouted on each of his cheeks. While his now feline head became a bit wider than his draconic one, he shrank down in height, which only made his head look more cartoonish as the dark grey fur began coating his previously aquamarine torso. His arms then shortened as he gained white paws, while his fingers became stubbier. However, this would soon be hidden as white gloves would form around his hands. Next, his tail twitched as it shortened down into a dark grey cat tail, with a white tip at the end. Similarly, Evan's legs would grow the same dark grey fur as the rest of his body, and his feet would become paws like his hands. Finally, the changes would finish off with a red collar forming around his neck, complete with a bell that resembled a cat. These finalized changes now left Evan as Kit, Startoon Studios' feline celebrity, from Brawl Stars. Surprisingly, you didn't feel that this was repetitive, or boring. In fact, you were fascinated and entertained by Evan trying out the ring's powers. This time, after he held down on the ring, he saw a sky blue, yellow, and green light emit from the ring. First, his legs and feet would change, with his white paws turning into two bird talons, while gaining an extra one on the back of each of his feet, and his legs would extend out, and become a bit scalier, while his thighs would thicken and grow sky blue feathers. As for the rest of his body, feathers with a sky blue, yellow, and green plumage sprouted, replacing his dark grey fur. His gloved hands would become bigger, as his arms grew more feathers, giving him parrot wings. Evan's cat tail would also expand, and grow many sky blue feathers as it became the tail of a parrot. He would then feel himself getting an aviator top, along with a pair of olive green trousers, while an aviator's cap formed on his head. His ears would recede into his head, as Evan's gender would once again shift to being female. As for the rest of her head, her cat muzzle would extend out, and harden into keratin, forming a dark grey beak. After that, her face would grow white, green, and yellow feathers. Finally, the sclera in her eyes became white, but she still had black eyes, just with white pupils. As Evan gained eyelashes on both of her eyes, it concluded his transformation into Molly McCaw, the parrot mascot character that flew planes, and admittedly crashed a handful of times. Despite having big wings now, the ring still stayed on, and Evan held down onto it for 5 seconds as usual, and the ring emitted a purple and orangish-yellow light. Evan seemed excited about this one particularly, as if something was special about the character she was thinking of. Surprisingly, Evan kept her feathers this time, but they became purple, with salmon-colored tips. Meanwhile, her beak would shift into a wider, yellowish beak, as her eyes became smaller and greener. Her head would also merge with her body, giving her a cephalothorax, as her aviator's outfit disappeared, showing that the sky blue feathers had been replaced with purple feathers. Her legs also shortened down, and her talons became yellow, rather than grey. Speaking of talons, she gained 2 finger-like talons at the end of each of her wings. Meanwhile, 2 orangish-yellow feathers would form at the top of her head, resembling hair. As for her tail, it became that of one feathery-like tail at first, but would split into 5. This was also the only instance so far, where Evan would remain female after transforming. In this case, Evan had become a Tweedle, a monster known for being fashionable, popular, and sociable from My Singing Monsters. Evan then was able to hold down the 2 fingers on her left wing, as she saw a pale blue light emit from the ring. Evan felt her feather molting, as her purple bat-like ears were replaced with cute pale blue anteater ears. Meanwhile, Evan regained her neck as her head became more circular as his eyes became cartoonish with Pac-Man-like pupils. Evan's height decreased, as short pale blue fur spread over her, as Evan was now male again for this form. As for his hands, they became mitten-like with a thumb on each one. Meanwhile, as if it was by magic, a shirt pocket formed on his fur, complete with 3 pens. Evan's feathery tails ended up merging into one tail, before being coated with pale blue fur, leaving him with an anteater tail. As for his mouth and nose, they merged, and began to stretch out into an anteater snout. His legs would become shorter as his feet became stubby, in a way like his hands. Finally, a pair of glasses with tape over the frame formed over his eyes, concluding his transformation into Sniffles, the nerdy anteater from Happy Tree Friends. After that, both you and Evan noticed a red and white light emitting from the ring. And since you both knew what this meant, it meant you shared this excitement. First, his mitten-like hands would become small black hands with 3 black fingers on each one. After that happened, his arms would grow crimson red fur, and his arms started to look thicker at the shoulders, but thinner near his wrists. As for Evan's chest, his pale blue fur was replaced with white fur, while his back gained the same red fur that was on his arms. Next, his anteater ears turned red and white, as they morphed into squirrel ears, now closer together on the top of his head. Speaking of his head, it became smaller, as white fur overtook the pale blue fur. His anteater snout shrank down, separating his mouth and nose, and giving him a small black squirrel nose, as one of his canines became a bucktooth. Evan also noticed a patch of red fur near his ears, the patch complementing them. Next, the glasses he had on faded as his eyes changed from being white with black pupils, to being black with white pupils. As the red fur spread around Evan's waist, his anteater tail began to twitch. Suddenly, his tail grew red and white fur. As it grew, becoming a bushy or else squirrel tail that was surprisingly bigger than himself. Lastly, his legs would gain the same red fur as his arms, and like his arms, his legs would become less thick the closer they got to his feet, which turned from pale blue to black as he got 3 toes on each foot. With that, Evan had now transformed into Hort Sows, the obnoxious red squirrel from Chicken Nut. You were so happy to see this, and you appreciated how much Evan loved your gift. As Evan held down on the ring, a blue light emitted once again, looking like the shade of water you would see in a pool. In fact, as Evan's ears were replaced with yellow and teal fins, along with him gaining one other one on the top of his head, it seemed ironic that he would go from a fire-related form to a water-related form. Evan's head would then become smoother, as it turned a cerulean blue color. His one buck tooth would then just become like most of his other teeth, and as for his eyes, they maintained their color. From his neck emerged a pretty big white, mane-like ruff, as his body was turning the same cerulean blue color as his head. His squirrel-like hands began to thicken, as they became cerulean blue paws. As he gained many fins on his back, he suddenly fell to the ground, giving him a quadrupedal stance, rather than a bipedal one. His tail not only felt a wave of fins grow over it, but it would also grow in size as it became blue, splitting at the tip, and looking like a mermaid tail. Next, his legs would change similarly to his arms, with his feet becoming paws just like his hands. This concluded Evan's transformation into a Vaporon, Eevee's water-type evolution. Evan then held down on the ring again, as a royal blue light emitted from it. After the light stopped emitting, Evan was able to stand up on 2 legs again. After that, his ear fins turned into blue deer ears with orange insides, while his head fin and ruff receded. However, following that, he grew a pair of deer horns. His face would then push out into a blue deer snout, as his eyes would change from being black with white pupils, to being white with orange irises and black pupils. His cerulean paws then morphed into stubby, brown deer hooves that shrank in the process. As his height decreased slightly, his tail began to recede as it soon turned into a small, fluffy deer tail. As he gained pale blue fur on his underbelly, a green tracksuit top appeared on his chest. Lastly, his nose became bigger, like the nose a deer would have, which finished his transformation into Bam, the blue jock deer from Animal Crossing. Evan then held down on the ring, but he suddenly felt shocked after seeing a pink light emit. Knowing what character he had in mind, he put the ring on the floor, just before his arms became cyan butterfly wings. As for his head, it would become pink and heart-shaped, and during this process, his mouth disappeared, making him unable to talk temporarily. However, judging by his eyes, he didn't seem to mind this. His eyes increased in size, as eyelashes formed, along with cyan eyeshadow, giving him more feminine eyes. Meanwhile, his deer horns were replaced with 2 antennae, with a purple heart at the tip of each one. As the pink spread over his body, replacing the blue fur, the green tracksuit shirt he had on was replaced with a short lavender dress, as his, now her, since Evan was female again, then gained the ability to fly. Her legs would then turn pink as they also gained knob-like feet. This finished off his transformation into Flutter, the silent and friendly butterfly from Dandy's world. Even if Evan was unable to talk, you could tell she wanted you to press the button with the reset symbol on her ring, and even if the ring wasn't on her hand, it still connected to her mind. As you went over, out of the seat you were in to sit down and watch these transformations, and pressed the reset button. When you did this, a cyan light emitted from the ring, and Evan started changing back. However, he wouldn't turn back into his human form. The first sign that this was true was that Evan's antennae turned into cat ears, which made you excited, as you knew what this meant. His head became more shaped like his human head, but it also grew cyan fur, as whiskers formed on his cheeks. Getting excited, you also saw that he gained his regular clothes back, as the fur spread over him, and his cyan wings suddenly became cyan fur-coated arms, with paws for hands. His spinal cord also twitched, as a fairly long cyan cattail formed, with a white tip, as his legs also became cyan, with cyan paws for feet. He opened his now light blue eyes, as he felt a sense of joy. As for you, all you could do now was clap. At this, Evan noticed this, and wanting to lean into the whole showtime aspect of him using the ring, he bowed. After the bow, you went over to hug your friend. While you do so, he thanks you. Thank you for making this birthday special. And you reply with, you're welcome. Happy birthday, Evan. The end.